Welcome to Stardom Talent Unscripted, because the real magic happens off script. This podcast is for women, by women, sharing real stories and conversations about creativity and the journey behind it all. This week, I sat down with Michelle Anflick, who I knew as a very talented singer and songwriter, and discovered that there was so much more to her amazing story. It's filled with amazing stories, lessons, so much creativity, and fun. I hope you all enjoy. We are so excited today to have Michelle Anflick. Welcome to Stardom Talent Unscripted. So, Michelle, I know you live here in Baltimore with your family, now your grandchildren. I guess, can you give us a tiny bit cliff notes about you?
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. I grew up in Maryland, and I've always lived here, other than the year I was in Israel, which was amazing. I'm an only child. I have a warm and close relationship with each of my parents. Had a lot of friends growing up. Always loved music. There's a lot of music in my home all the time, all different kinds of music. As a young girl, my parents played in my home the soundtracks for Annie, Fiddler on the Roof, and Star Wars. And those kind of planted some seeds for my musical nurturing, so to speak. So it was a very natural part of my life and a welcome part of my life. We were familiar with Yiddishkeit to some degree, but not Shomer Shabbos.
Okay, so if it's okay, I'm going to pause you for a moment. So you said you always were connected to music, but why music? I mean, some people play soccer, some people draw.
First of all, my parents introduced me to music. My great-grandmother when she passed away, she had left a piano for me, which we had in our house, and I have it in my house today. I am an only child, so I think my parents were excited to give me lots of opportunities, and it was easy for them to do that. With the piano came, of course, dun 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 dun, piano lessons. So it lasted for 4 years. I did not like to practice. My mom would nudge me a little bit to practice, and then I just said after a certain amount of time, I'm done. But you mentioned sports also, so I was doing gymnastics simultaneously. So I had, a lot of hours in the gym, and then practicing piano, and then homework and other parts of life and friends. So the piano lessons kind of fell to the wayside.
So you mentioned gymnastics. Can we talk about that for a minute?
Sure.
When did you start?
So gymnastics, it all happened around the same time. I was in second grade, and I was taking a public class in my public school, an after-school recreation club kind of gymnastics class, tumbling, front rolls, back rolls, things like that on a mat. And one day my mom came to pick me up, and the instructor said, your daughter seems to have a little bit of a knack and a flair for this kind of movement and this kind of sport. You might want to enroll her in Marvatine's, which is a gym that was right near my house. My mom said, okay. I started that and I got right onto the competitive team and basically did gymnastics from second grade until 10th grade. It was a lot. Looking back, it's hard to say, yes, it's impressive, right, about yourself.
Well, they say gymnastics is hours and hours and hours at the gym, right?
Yes.
It's strength, it's flexibility.
Yes.
There's so many.
Grace, coordination, fearlessness, which was one of the reasons I ended up stopping. But I will just tell you, at the peak of my gymnastics career, I was practicing 25 hours a week. And I loved it. There was these conditioning circuits, I don't know, maybe 10 different stations. And if you're rotating between leg lifts and sit-ups and push-ups and all kinds of stuff, I really think that experience taught me so many fundamental and foundational skills that really shaped my personality and shaped my drive, I guess, to go for things and to be fearless, but not in a physical, dangerous kind of way, which is why I ended up stopping. There was a certain trick we had to do on tumbling, like on the floor exercise mat, and I was like, I'm done. So
that was it.
I was at practice one day, and I was very at peace with myself, and we're all about to do this. Everyone took their turn running and doing the round-up back handspring double back flip. And I literally just stopped and said, you know what, I really am scared I'm going to die, so I'm not going to do this. So the cool thing was I left that day at practice, but there was no scene. It was just kind of like, I'm not so comfortable, I'm going to go home. And they were like, fine. And I came back 3 weeks later as a coach for little kids. And I would watch my friends on the other side of the gym, wave to them, and they're doing their hard practicing. And I'm thinking, I am so glad I'm in this new state. And that was it.
Do any of your kids do gymnastics?
No, it's interesting. I did not really encourage them so much. I did a little ballet lessons with them when they were younger and a little bit of music lessons, but I didn't encourage gymnastics because there is such a high potential for injury. But one thing I was going to go back to and say, the other skills I feel like I learned were resilience. That's a big buzzword these days. I've heard athletes talk about that. And I do think that that's something that's been very helpful to me, to have that resilience when things get tough. You keep going, or you figure out a way to make it work, and you just get back on track. And all of this happened, by the way, in my life before I was religious. So I kind of had the seeds planted for that, for our kind of lifestyle, and having emunah and just getting with the program and, rebuilding, refocusing, trying again. I think that's a big part of my life now. And I do think that that was part of what made becoming from so easy for me.
Because you had like these
Yeah.
life lessons almost.
I think so. And one more aspect I want to share about that is I learned what we call PMA, positive mental attitude. That was a big theme in my gym. So it's easy to be frustrated and get down on yourself if you didn't do the trick right, or if you fell off the beam or whatever it is. But our coaches would always say PMA, positive mental attitude. So I took that with me as well.
So your childhood was filled with gymnastics, music, and lots of good fun. And then I assume you went to college.
Yes. So when I first graduated high school, I went to Georgetown University in a nursing program. Before I started college, though, when I graduated, my parents and I went away for 4 weeks. We went to Israel for 2 weeks and Europe for 2 weeks. So that was like, I guess, my graduation trip, you could say. So a long story short, when we were in Israel, my parents were very inspired. My father put tefillin on for the first time since his bar mitzvah at the kotel. And they were like, whoa. And I was thinking like, eh. So they did their thing. I did my thing. When we came back to America, they started their journey. They had asked in Israel who is a Rav in Maryland, near Potomac, Maryland, where I'm from, that we could get in touch with. And they were given the name of Rabbi Tzvi Teitelbaum. And they just started classes, wanted to kasher their house, went to the Orthodox shul in the area. And I went off to college thinking they were kind of nuts. But okay, they're doing their thing. That's fine. 2 years later, I really wanted to go back to Europe. So at that time, my parents found out about the Jerusalem Fellowships was an Aish Torah summer program. And then here's their daughter saying she wants to go to Europe. So they said, okay, we'll give you $1,000. You can go to Europe and do your own thing. Or you can go to this program in Israel that has housing, airfare, itinerary, food, everything. And there's other college kids. And I said, are there going to be boys? Okay, fine, I'll go. And I love college. What can I tell you? So I thought about it for about a minute. And I said, fine, I'll go to Israel. So I went on that program. Needless to say, after 3 weeks of the 6-week program, I called my parents and say, okay, I'm staying in Neve for the year. They're like, wait a minute. We wanted you to like it, but to go for a whole year, what about college? And what about your nursing career? And so we had all these long discussions. I stayed for the year. And I came back, and I was for sure going to go back to Neve for a second year. And then I found out about this place called Yeshiva University. I had never heard of such a thing. And they have a whole college with only girls, and it's all from people. And I was thinking, I don't know anybody else in America who's Orthodox, who's my age. This sounds like a good thing to do. So I transferred to Stern, and I ended up not going back to Neve. Yeah. And at that time, I changed my degree to education. So this is take 2 of my college degree. I graduated with that degree and taught for a few years, and then other parts of life happened, of course. But then I ended up in dental hygiene many years later, and that's what I'm doing now, which I love.
Okay, so let's just rewind for a moment. Let's go back to maybe college. So where did your music career and abilities come into play?
I forgot to mention I played drums as well. So my father, when I was in high school, I forgot to mention this also, he is a psychologist, and he, did a lot of work over the years seeing patients and doing a lot of military research. That was his area that he worked in by day. And by night, he played in a band with some of his peers in their, I guess, 40s. And they would play clubs, and, there was like a guitarist, a keyboardist, a singer, and my father was the drummer. They used to practice in my basement. To me, it didn't even occur to me that this is like kind of unique or kind of a cool thing. Looking back, I'm like, that's kind of funky, like that was a neat thing. So, but I was too young also at the time to really appreciate it. And I never went with him to any of the gigs because I was young and bars are 21 and over. But he did teach me. I remember asking him, and he taught me the basics. And to this day, I can sit down with a set of drums and play a basic beat to like a basic song. So when I was in college, there was a club on campus that brought in different bands. And, that was part of the weekend activities of the American college campus. So one night I was there with my friends and I said, you know what? I want to go up and play the drums. And I literally went up to the guys in between sets, and there was this again a 4-piece band or whatever it was. And I said, "Can I sit in on the next song on the drums?" They said, "Sure."
That was very brave of them.
It was brave of them, and I was just excited. And I sat down, and it happened to be we played a Beatles song, basic rock and roll beat, and it was hysterical. I'm sitting there playing. I didn't tell my friends. I just kind of, tiptoed over to them. So all of a sudden, as I'm playing, I'm looking out into the crowd of my friends. People are just doing things that people do in a club and, dancing, smiling, waving. And then they're looking at me like this look of like, what is happening? What are you doing? And then it took one of the drumsticks and I'm like, hey, just having a good time. Went back to the song. And that honestly was so much fun. Afterwards, the band was like, you did great. It was wonderful. And then that was the end of that. That's the story. But I was it was such a spontaneous, fun moment, and it had to do with my music and just wanting to connect and wanting to be part of that. I wouldn't say that scene because I don't want to be part of that scene necessarily, but just be involved in creating music.
So then I guess after you started becoming From, music was still part of you.
Yes. So when I got to Stern, well, when you become From, I was 20. And so I was just talking with a friend how it feels like I kind of went back to kindergarten. You're learning all of this stuff. I went to Hebrew school as a kid, and I knew probably the first paragraph of benching from JCC day camp. And I knew Kiddush from when my grandparents would come to visit Friday night dinner occasionally. But one of the funniest things, I think also, the word daven is a verb. When someone talked about davening, I thought daven is a noun. Like, what's a daven? I never even heard of the word shavua. So I really started from the very basics, learning about Yiddishkeit. And after a year at Neve, I mentioned I went to Stern, and I was actually another brave thing. Like, I didn't really know the songs, but they, put together like a Hanukkah concert choir of girls. And I don't know what possessed me, but I'm like, I'll sing. And I guess I just enjoyed the music aspect so much. And I had made some nice friends. They were also doing it. And I was like, it's a group of people. It's a choir. So I'm not going to be singing solo. And I learned the songs. And so I just feel like because of the love of music, it pushed me to do something that I didn't even qualify to do necessarily, but I was willing to give it a try. And it ended up being great. And some of those songs, fast forward, when I got my first job as a preschool teacher, I was able to teach some of those songs to the kids.
Did you feel like you were so behind? Did you feel a big difference being in Stern with all the other people?
I'll tell you, to Stern's credit, I was looking back now also, I did not. There were such nice girls that I met. And the girls who were interested in hanging out with the guys and wearing mini skirts and stuff like that, which I know exists, and I'm not judging for a millisecond, I said to myself, I'm not interested in that. I left that because I was interested in growing and rediscovering a new part of myself. Because I know what people, when I went to Stern, some people say, be a little careful, be cautious, because it's a mixed crowd there. You're not sure what you're going to get. And at Neve, it was quite a different hashkafa. And I didn't understand what they meant because I didn't know the nuances of hashkafas that were different. So when I got to Stern, I understood, looking back, what they meant. But I was thinking, you never say never, right? You never know what you might be tempted with or this and that. But I was just so not interested. So I met girls who I really connected with. So I think it was a great move for me.
That's amazing.
And I want to tell you a funny story about Stern and music. So at that time, Achenu and Hamalach, to me, were like new songs. I don't know how new they were back in 91. But what I do remember is an in Shabbos, and I had a few friends in the dorm, and we would stay in the dorm. I said, this Shabbos, I'm going to learn, you're going to teach me Hamalach and Achenu. And the entire Shabbos, we sang the song again and again. And after that Shabbos, I knew those two songs.
It's amazing how this idea of song and music really propelled you to grow and learn more. So just to bring us into present day, how did you end up in Baltimore? Was it very soon after Stern? How did you end up here?
So my second year at Stern, I was a dorm counselor. And then when I graduated from Stern, I had two offers I didn't have a job lined up right away. And I had two offers to be dorm counselors. One in Israel at IAT, which is Aisha Torah's school for women, or like Neve is Or Sameach's school for women. I don't think IAT exists anymore. But that was one opportunity to go back to Israel, be a madricha there. Or David Lukens from Turo approached me and asked me to be the head dorm counselor at Turo in Manhattan. So what do I do? Israel, Manhattan. And so I ended up choosing Manhattan. And that year I met my husband and we wanted to be in Kollel. And so Ner Yisrael has the yeshiva right here.
And here you are.
And I'm from Potomac and it was close by. And I'd also gotten my first teaching job in Silver Spring. So it all kind of worked out. Yeah. So that's how we ended up in Baltimore. So I did that for 3 years. I commuted for 3 years.
And then after that, you, I guess, took a different job closer.
Yes. So ironically, so after that, we moved to Potomac with my parents for 2 years while my husband was in school. And I was a youth director at a shul in Potomac. And actually, I really liked that teaching. I found I loved the kids. And I loved working with young children. But in a classroom setting, I realized is not for me. So I segued into a youth director position, which I really liked. I was partly administrative, partly programming, partly with the kids, working with the parents. And
very different than classroom.
Yeah. And I really liked that a lot. So then he finished his schooling in a couple of years. We moved back to Baltimore. And I was thinking, am I going to go back into youth directing? And I decided, no, that experience in that shul was just right. And so then I was doing a little soul searching in terms of what am I going to do? He started his job at Sinai Hospital. He did that for many years.
Is that when you switched to dental hygienist?
So not quite. Not quite. I did a little office work. I was home with my youngest daughter for a couple of years. And then that's when I switched. And then we realized, okay, so I need to go back to work. And what am I going to do? And that's when, that's when dental hygiene happened. So I use that also, by the way, as an encouragement to people who can't quite decide what they want to do.
You can always switch.
Yes, I switched 3 times, and I got a second bachelor's and not even a master's because the hygiene, you only need a bachelor's, but that's what I wanted to do. And I did the second bachelor's, which was dental hygiene with 4 children. So again, that proved my point when I talk to people about career. Not that I have many people coming to me, but in my work as a hygienist, I have schmooze with people. I see girls coming back from seminary all the time.
And they have absolutely no idea what they want to do.
Right. And I try to tell them, clearly it's best if you can have some direction out, but if you don't have to worry because it's possible. Even after you get married, even after you have children. Again, is it lechatchila? No. Can it happen? Absolutely.
So nursing school, then education, then stay-at-home mom, and now dental hygiene. And I remember that I believe you still are involved with gymnastics a little bit.
Just as a quick aside, I was coaching for Rivki Goldberg's gymnastics team in Bas Melech for about half a year. I may go back again. That was a great experience, getting back in the gym and helping these girls. And life just got really, really busy for me the second half of the year. A lot of weddings on Thursday nights, which is when our practice was. So that was a lot of fun. And I hope to go back to it. We'll see.
So you're still mostly involved with music.
Other than family and dental hygiene work, that's like when I think of Michelle, I think of music. Yeah. So, and it's kind of cool that, which I'll get to, how being in the field of dental hygiene and interacting with lots of patients every day, I've shared my story and some of my songs with a lot of the patients who give me tremendously positive feedback. Because I thought it was okay, but when you hear from all these random people, Jewish, non-Jewish people, men and women, because a lot of the songs I produced originally were sung by men, so I could share them with men and women. And I had one patient who is in his 80s, big Broadway goer, lots of Broadway shows under his belt. Like, he really loves the theater. And I played him one of my songs, and he said, "This song could be on Broadway." And that was, I must say, I was like, oh wow, thank you. And so it I was kind of like, okay, there's something to this, I think.
So tell me a little bit about how you got started with your songs
Sure.
and what the songs are,
Sure.
um, who sang them. I know people might not know it's you because you didn't even sing most of them.
Correct.
So tell everyone a little bit about how you
Okay.
started and what those songs are.
Okay. Here's the story. So back in 2014, I think it was that year, that's when I started writing music, that's for sure. But right around that time, Rabbi Wallerstein had come to Baltimore. He gave an annual shear around Rosh Hashanah time. And I went to that shear, and that particular year, it was on gratitude. And I was really inspired by this shear, and I came home and wrote this really pretty poem called Thank You. Inspiration in the moment. And what was really interesting is that um, within a few days, this melody just appeared in my brain. When I tell the story to my kids, like, yep, the music just popped into your head. Hashem put the music in your head. They heard me tell the story a few times, and that's what happened. I don't know where this melody came from. And I, B'siyata D'Shmaya, put it together with these lyrics and came up with a song, kind of a nice song. It's more like a poem written to music. It's not chorus, verse, bridge, chorus, verse, or
Not developed like a song,
exactly.
but a melody for the poem.
Yes. And at the time, I remember thinking, okay, and I played it for, my family and got a lot of positive feedback. And I decided, I want to do something with this. So when I thought of music in Baltimore, I thought of Nasi Gross. I called Nasi Gross and I mentioned I had a question from him about an original song. He said, sure, come on over. So I played him the melody and I showed him the lyrics. I didn't obviously sing it for him. And he said, maybe there's something here. He said, I'm not telling you it's going to be a number one hit. He would make that very clear, but he was very, very supportive of that and sweet about that. But he said, you know what? It wouldn't hurt to have a demo made of this and send it around and see maybe someone will pick it up and something can happen with this song. So when I came away from that meeting, I was on cloud nine. Nasi grows
Wow.
holds of the song. So that really was the very beginning. So I tried to do something with this song, but it didn't really move forward. And in the meantime, other poems just started flowing. If I would hear a quote, if I would have an experience, I think maybe once or twice I had a melody and then words. But for me, it's mostly words first.
From some inspiration.
Mm-hmm. And
what are the different songs and themes of those songs?
Okay, so it's all about going through a challenge, connecting with Hashem, feeling supported by Hashem, and then knowing that I can move forward and upward and I can make it. And I always like to say my songs don't always have a happy ending. I don't think they have a sad ending, but they're open-ended so that the listener can take it wherever he or she wants to take it.
It's up to the person to grow.
Yes. And I consciously and subconsciously, I think, wrote my songs for a wider audience, like a Jewish audience, but also a mainstream audience, not necessarily Jewish. Sometimes I'll say the word God in the song. Sometimes I don't. I often will use the pronoun you. And then some people have said to me they thought it was about a relationship. They thought it was about God. They had, whatever it is they wanted it to be, or their parent, maybe that's what people have said.
And I guess it allows them to connect to it in a way that they feel connected to it.
Right, and my whole rationale for even getting involved with music also is about inspiring other people. So let me backtrack a little bit. So I had this song with, got the inspiration and the confidence to move forward after meeting with Nasi Gross. And then more poems came. One poem in particular came, and it was new words to a song I had written in Israel, sitting in the Horva synagogue before it was rebuilt. It was very inspirational, very inspiring. At that moment, I was 20 and becoming religious and thinking about my parents. And I wrote this whole song to them about don't worry, I'm okay here. Even though, again, they had become from, but this was still beyond what they had imagined me doing. And that was just my way of connecting with them. I'm okay here. Let me do my thing here. I'll be back. I'll finish college. I'm still your daughter. Don't worry. And then fast forward many years when I started seeing in my community in Baltimore, lots of kids struggling, kids really having a hard time in life with Yiddishkeit, with friendships, with their parents, whatever it was, going through tough times. And I was thinking, I really would love to write music that could inspire these kids So maybe they'll choose to listen to this and go about their day humming this tune or singing these words. I like to try to be a voice for people who might not be able to express themselves creatively, but are struggling and are suffering. And maybe this will be a comfort to them, help bringing them, give them more happiness and more hope. So that's part of why I got into it. So the messages are, like I explained, hopeful and encouraging. So bringing dental hygiene into the picture right now. So I was at work one day. I got inspiration for lyrics based on the old song I sang in the old city, but new lyrics. And I was with a patient and I just said, I'll be right back. And I literally stood up, took off my gloves, ran into the other room, took out a sticky note and jotted down all these lyrics because I couldn't not write them down because I was scared I was going to forget them. So I was out of the room for maybe like 2 minutes. So I scrawled it all down on a sticky note, finished my patient. And then like when I got home that night, wrote it all down and it became the first song that I produced called Please See. And it's a message to Hashem to please see me where I am and where I'm going.
And I know this song was sang by a male singer. So can I just ask, how exactly does that work?
Good question. Excellent question. And it was a progression. It was it evolved. So first I would play the melody on the piano and speak out the words to the timing of the melody.
Interesting.
Yeah. So maybe
So then
let's
they
see.
can hear the
Exactly.
notes and put the words together at the right time. With the right
Exactly.
notes.
Right.
That's
So I'd
very
say,
interesting.
please see all there is in me. That's the first line. And then I would play it on the piano, that phrase. And then
I guess you can give feedback, like no,
yeah,
off or
go up a little bit or pause this, hold this for 2 counts, whatever it was.
Interesting.
And so it was a tedious process, but I did 2 songs like that. And then I had a bunch of different questions, different trials I wanted to speak with a Rav about of how to move forward because it really was difficult and it took a lot of time and wasn't going to be so easy I could do it again like that. So, with certain trials, we are a little bit hesitant to go. And it's a little scary to ask, because I knew once I hear this, basically, can I sing in front of a man for business reasons if I'm putting a song together? Can I play myself recorded? So I spoke it all out with a Rav. And again, I was kind of like, okay, this is it. After this conversation, it's a turning point. I'm either going to go in, I don't know which direction we're going in, but I'm going to ask the questions and I'm going to see what the Rav says. And the Rav said, if you are doing it for business purposes, you're not like sitting down and having a kumsitz with a bunch of guys, which is not what I would do. Then, it's phrases of songs. I don't necessarily sing a whole song out. That was the guidance I was given. And that I feel worked for me. And if the Rav had said no, I would have gone a different route. And I've spoken with a songwriter who I know is very popular. And she does sing for women. And she told me her specific story was that her Rav said no. And she said, okay. And she's had a lot of success in songwriting, not producing her own music necessarily in what I'm describing.
After those first 2, you did how many more with the male singers?
So 2 more.
Which are called?
Mission to Live. That I did with Judy Landman. She actually wrote a poem. And she knew of my other songs. We knew each other from Simchas Esther and doing plays. So we did that together. She knew I wrote music and I produced the music. And she said, could you come up with a tune for this poem?
So that was her words of inspiration.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, I'm so honored. Wow, she's coming to, we're friends, but to know that someone's coming to me because of my reputation now as a songwriter. And it came out to be a beautiful song. We made a video to it as well. We re-released the video after October 7th. And that new release with pictures focusing on that reality got over 11,000 views.
Wow.
So we were really excited. And there was one more song I did with yet a different singer called Another Day. And I never did anything with that one yet, but it's more of like an upbeat, fast-paced song where my others are more ballad-like. The same kind of message, an inspirational message, just trying something new.
And the most recent one you recorded.
Yes, exactly. Then I decided I wanted to save a lot of money and not hire a singer. And I had this particular song And I did go into the studio and worked with a studio engineer and did instrumentation for the song and recorded it with a different studio engineer and put it all together. And I'm really excited that that's the first song that I produced. I haven't posted on YouTube. I was told by my Rav that I could post on YouTube if it says for women only. Personally, I'm not holding in that space at this point. So I've sent it to women
And it's called.
this far. And I've actually performed it a couple times.
And what was it like recording your own song as opposed to hiring someone to record it? Like, what was that experience like doing that for the first time?
Awesome. It was really, really awesome. I love the feeling of being behind a mic and singing and then editing and hearing back and realizing, oh, totally missed that note. Let's do that again. And that's quite different than singing live, obviously, but it was so creative. And just, there's something, I've described this to other people. There's something when I'm singing, and other people again concur, there's like this magical feeling that happens when air flows through your lungs, through your vocal cords, whatever the anatomical, physiological reality is, and comes out in a song, even if it's not perfect, it just feels good.
So you mentioned Simchas Esther. Was that the first time you were on a stage?
Since 6th grade, yes.
Where did Simchas Esther? How did that come about?
So I have a good friend here in Baltimore, Devorah Gross. We also work together in our dental hygiene career. And I had mentioned to her that I play the drums a little bit and are just getting to know each other, becoming friends, whatever. And she's also musical. And she said to me, I think that the Simchas Esther play that's going on this year, this was several years ago, is looking for a drummer.
What is the Simchas Esther play?
So Simchas Esther is an organization that raises money for Kalas and Chassanim to help them go into marriage with things that they might need, whether it's physical things, bedding and dishes and stuff like that, and help with sheitos and just different things. So it's a beautiful organization, and they put on a fundraising play most years. Some years they don't do it. So it's a comedy, and that's why it's called Simchas Esther. And there's a group of women in Baltimore who do this play, and the idea is just to give people a night out, just to laugh and have a good time. It's silly, it's zany. So Devorah said they need a drummer. So I said, I play the drums some, but like I don't know if I could be their drummer. So that's how I got in the door. And while I was there at their first practice, let's say, in auditions, the director said, just read a paragraph. Why do I have to read a paragraph if I'm just playing drums? So she said, just read. I said, fine. So long story short, I didn't play the drums. I landed a part. And I did it for 3 years. That's what my Simchas Esther experience was. And that gave me confidence to be in another play, which you are familiar with, Mary Poppins.
I'm familiar with that one, yeah.
Well, I wonder why. So that's how I got comfortable on a stage, I guess you could say. The benefit of the achtas leading up to the play and all the practicing and being together with a group of creative women and just enjoying having, a couple nights a week where I'm really occupied with something productive and interesting and fun and challenging. All of that is so worth it for the months of preparation. And then, there's definitely nerves right before going on in the stage. And Hashem is good to me, that he helps me remember the lines and the songs come out okay. I hope it stays.
Is it a similar feeling on stage to when you record?
Um,
Or is it more nerve-wracking?
More nerve-wracking on stage.
No corrections.
Correct. Exactly. But I enjoy it. There's a thrill, and I know when I'm seeing the audience, I don't really look at the audience. I look above. Like I think we were kind of taught to do that.
And then you performed your song live.
The song called "This Far" I mentioned. I had met Meira Mendel, who is another musician in the community, and we talked music. She actually happened to do gymnastics as well. And she does some work at Bas Melech too. So we had a lot of connections and we got a great schmooze, and I sent her my songs. And then she said to me, I'm doing this Hanukkah concert coming up. I would love you to perform one of your songs. And I said, what? Like me? What? She said, no, absolutely. And you'll play piano. I said, okay, we can talk about a song. I do not play piano. She's like, of course you do. I'm like, Meira, I don't play piano. Fine, don't play piano. But will you sing one of your songs? So I literally she gave me there was like a month and a half I had to think about it. And I kept saying to her, can I tell you last minute? Because I'm just not sure. I was so nervous. I was so honored, number one, to be asked. But so like literally the Sunday of the show, and I still was nervous and I still was just not sure. I had been practicing it 50 times at my house, so in my basement, in front of a mirror, pretending, practicing, can I do this? So my confidence was building. So she said, just come to the rehearsal Sunday morning. If that goes well and you're comfortable, you'll come back at night. And if I have you toward the end of the program, so if you don't end up coming, it's fine. If you don't end up performing, she was so chilled. It was so nice. It was just what I needed. Again, Baruch Hashem gave me what I needed. And the rehearsal went okay. And so I was like, that's it, I'm doing it. And I did it and got a lot of positive feedback. Again, there's back to the positive feedback, how that really makes a difference for people. And it was a very special evening.
And then you performed again.
Exactly. So then there was another opportunity you provided for women in the arts. And that time, I probably, as soon as I saw you posted it, that you were doing this, and you said, send an audition video, I just was like, I'm just going to forward it right to me. I had a good time. Let's do it again. And so I was like, okay. So in this musical journey, so I've written about 20 songs and produced, we talked about 4 or 5 songs. And one more story I want to tell, and about a patient also. A non-Jewish patient was sitting in my chair. Her daughter was in my chair, and I had told her about one of my songs, and she was listening on her phone while I was working with her daughter. I look around, I look over at her, and she's starting to cry. Wow. And I said, are you okay? She's like, was your song about the Lord? And I said, actually, yeah, it was. It is. And she's like, whenever I think about the Lord, I cry. And she's like, I really love your song. And it just...
It's so amazing to see somebody brought to tears from your heart.
And exactly. And I'm saying this not as like, oh, look at me. I'm saying this as the power of music and the
it really can evoke something.
Yes.
That, might be hard to bring out in other ways.
Mm-hmm. And what I'm doing here with this inspiration for me, like when I see that, I only want to write more songs and do more and more. Like it's such an empowering feeling to see through me, the siyata d'shmaya I get to write lyrics and come up with melodies can positively, emotionally, and spiritually impact someone else. So in this music journey, I'm going to make a long story short, but I had the ability to make a connection with A.B. Rottenberg. So one of my friends is friendly with his wife, and she helped to make a connection. And he was very nice, and we had several conversations. He gave me a lot of good pointers. He was very complimentary of the songs that I sent him that I had done. He wasn't able to make a direct connection with me with a producer or make the songs happen in the Jewish world, the Jewish music world, which is what I really wanted. But that's okay. Again, Hashem said, that's not how it's happening. But it was a thrill to be able to, we probably had like 3 different conversations that were each probably 30 minutes long.
That's very cool.
Over a few months. And it is very cool, and it was cool, and I'm so grateful. Before I spoke with him, I decided to look for an interview with him so I could get to know him a little bit more. And in his interview, he talked about different musical influences that he had as a child, not all Jewish music. Mm-hmm. I don't remember, maybe he talked about Billy Joel, John Denver perhaps. I don't remember the exact names of the people, and with my own music, it's a really interesting story that I was speaking with a producer in Israel who has worked with Shweki. He's done some really top music production. He's known in the industry. They're very well known. And he happens to be related to a relative of mine. So we had a connection. So I sent him some of my songs, and we were talking. And he said to me, can I ask you a question? Can I ask you how old you are? I said, sure, I'm in my 50s. We'll just say that. That's fine. I'm happy to share 50s, yay 50s. So he said, okay. And can I ask you, did you ever listen to non-Jewish music? I said, yes, I did. I grew up not religious. I became from a 20, and I did. I listened to all kinds of music growing up. And he said, did you ever hear of the band called the Eagles? And I was like, the Eagles? Like, yeah, my father played that all the time in my house, and I love a lot of their music. And it was just so interesting to me. And we'll take this in a few different directions. Number one, his skill as a producer, that he could pinpoint based on the music I was creating, not only the era, not only the style of music, but the actual band, that was one of my favorite bands that I used to hear in my house all the time. So his skill level, that's impressive. But what does that tell us also? When they talk about music being so influential on our neshama, it's very real. Because I didn't think to myself as I'm writing music, oh, let me write a song kind of like the Eagles, because I remember I used to like that music, so that's what I'm going to try to emulate. Not at all. I literally just write what Hashem puts in my brain and my heart, and it comes out. Melodies, lyrics, everything. So when he said that to me, I was blown away. So again, it's positive and negative, right? So here I am now in my 50s for 35 years, let's say, and part of me wanted to cringe, like, oh gosh, like the Eagles influenced my neshama to write music. But I said, listen, I am what I am, and I experienced what I experienced. So then it was amazing. I heard a podcast by Rabbi Leib Kellerman. You know who that is? He wrote Permission to Believe, Permission to Receive. He's a Baal Tshuva who used to be a news anchor. He's very, very influential and is very prolific in his speaking engagements and really, really influencing people positively. I'm not sure of all his accomplishments, but he told a story in this podcast that he went to Israel and was becoming from, and he went to 2 different yeshivas. One yeshiva he went to, he told them that he had learned comparative religion. He spent a lot of time learning Christianity. And they said, you know what? It's going to take about 5 years to kind of detox from all of that. But, you can learn with us and we'll get you through it. And it's going to be good. And he kind of left feeling like, oh, gosh, like it wasn't such a positive experience. And then he spoke with Rav Volbe, and he said to him, you know what? Teach me a Chiddush. Meaning, like, tell me what you learned from your experience studying comparative religion, and let's work with it. That's part of you. We don't have to like shun it. We can bring it in, and now let's bring you forward. But like, and also made him feel like a solid mensch of a guy who was like a chashuv person where he was now. So much so that he said, "Teach me something you know. Let's hear it. Let's talk about it," as opposed to let's detox you, and then you'll move forward. So I heard that right after kind of hearing this, and then I had written a song, a very famous Eagles song. I rewrote the words to the song, totally Jewish theme. And I was like, who in the world would appreciate this? A Jewish version of this particular song that's a secular song. I'm like, Lenny Solomon of Schlafrock. So let me see if I can find him. So I got his number. I reached out to him. He was like, this is really good. I love this. And we had a whole conversation. He said, I'm actually working on a new album. This particular song I have on my playlist to do a version to. He said, can I use your song on my album? I said, let me think about that. Yes. And I said, say what? You want to use my song on your album? He's like, yes, it's really good. So then,
wow.
Then I wrote 3 other songs for him, 3 or 4 other songs that are going to be on his album. Not sure if the album's coming out. He has to do some fundraising. He has had some setbacks, but that was another incredible experience. So cool. And so when I wrote the Jewish lyrics to this song, again, rather than feeling like what led me to like this next stage of potential success of like getting my name out there through music, a secular song. Well, that doesn't feel right. I took Rabbi Kellerman's experience and I said, you know what? I don't have to feel bad about my past. I can embrace it, and that's what Hashem put into me at that time, and here we are now. So I think it's okay.
I think it's amazing that you just take whatever you went through and go forward with it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's what we're doing day by day.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for coming out, taking your time to talk to all of us. Definitely gave us a lot of food for thought, a lot of interesting lessons. Thank you for sharing your creative spirit with all the women who are looking for theirs, using theirs, want to hear about what other people are doing. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. And again, thanks so much for having me. And providing this opportunity for women to share. It was really like exciting and a pleasure for me to get to talk about all of this creativity. And one thing I want to highlight is that I'm literally thriving with this as part of my life in my mid-50s. as a busy bubby and still working full time. So I want to just share also that if you have a thought to maybe, whether it's music or any other kind of creative art or hobby that you're looking to try, 50s is a great time to start. I mean, I didn't start just now and it's been part of my life for a long time, but I'm going for it. And so I would just encourage people out there, just if you can, go for it. Make that me time, the self-care time, and enjoy this stage of life. And if you're 20 and you're listening to this, start now also. Or if you're 70, go for it. Whatever it is, so fulfilling. And whatever you're doing, whatever type of creative outlet, it can always be used to help somebody else. Figure out the way to help yourself and help others.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Wow, what an incredible episode. I hope you all enjoyed. As always, if you have an idea for a guest, please reach out either by email or directly through my website. Information is in the show notes. And have a wonderful Yentas.